Okay, we'll get started here. I'm going to do the script for remote meetings, and then we'll go to the county commissioners meeting and then the select board meeting. Okay, so this open meeting of the select board and county commissioners is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by a law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the select board and county commissioners is convening by video conference via Zoom webinar. As posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. We will do a preliminary we'll confirm member access right now. So board members, when I call your name, please let me know you're here. Don Holgate.
Here.
Christy Ferrantella.
Here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
Okay, and we have staff members. We've got Erica Mooney.
Present.
Ken Bogrant.
Present.
Gibson.
Present.
Brian Turbot.
In attendance.
Andrew Vorse.
Here.
And let's see, Graham Durbich.
Here.
And I think other people participating. Sue Mitzman, she's here from NAMI and ASAP. Can you hear me, Sue?
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. And then we've got Robert Lucchini.
Lucchini, yes, I am here.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Lucchini. Okay, we've got that done. Public participation guidelines. We're using Zoom webinar for meetings, which allows for the public to participate in the meetings as an attendee. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. People registering to be in attendance must use their names, otherwise they will not be allowed to participate in discussions. They click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on them when they have raised their hands in the order they were raised. All questions, comments should be directed through the chair. Let's see, meeting materials. All supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body are available on the town's website. We are, let's see, some ground rules. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If you're on this, if you're not speaking, if you're a panelist, please turn your video off when you're not speaking. This kind of makes things cleaner here. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please state your name before speaking unless the chair has already introduced you. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, Don, heading over to you for County Commissioners meeting.
Yes, good evening. I'll call the October 27th County Commissioner meeting to order. The only announcement is that the meeting is being video and audio recorded. Are there any public comments for items otherwise not on the County Commissioner's agenda tonight? I don't actually see any participants. So I don't believe that there's any new business. We'll move on to approval of minutes, payroll warrants and treasury warrants. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Second. All those in favor by roll call: Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. I'm going to open a public hearing to consider the layout of a portion of Young's Way as a public highway and a taking of easements over said portions of Young's Way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of the public hearing is to obtain approval for the order of taking by eminent domain for the approval of the layout of a portion of Young's Way as a public highway and for the taking of an easement over said portion of the Young's Way as shown on the plan, which is attached to the material for the meeting. The purpose for this taking is to make Young's Way a public way, to minimize the number of curb cuts onto Old South Road, and to create a network of public roads to connect with Tacoma Way and Amelia Drive. The takings have been drafted by Town Council, and the proposal has been put forward as a recommendation of the Planning Board for both the taking and the layout of the portion of Young's Way as a public way. Be happy to answer any questions with respect to it. We had a question from Harvey Young today, and we were able to answer that question for him satisfactorily. So he is very comfortable with approving the taking as proposed.
Thank you, Ken. Are there any board questions? Matt?
Yeah, Ken, I have a question. Is the plan to eventually connect to Tacoma?
I'll let Andrew speak to that, but that's the object of the exercise, to be able to create public ways to get over into the Tacoma and Amelia driveway. But perhaps Andrew can comment on that as well.
Andrew?
Madam Chair, yes. So eventually, there is land adjacent to this that is likely to come in for a subdivision. We have a preliminary plan which does show it connecting to Tacoma. And the point of that is, as Ken mentioned, is to gradually build a network of interconnected roads. So that would be a later phase.
To follow up, Andrew, why not take it now? Are you pretty confident it will happen? Is that the?
Matt, the subdivision hasn't been formally laid out yet. It's just a preliminary that the board has looked at. So that's why we're taking step one here, is to take that section of Young's. The next, are you talking about the remainder of Young's?
Yeah, the remainder all the way through. So you're missing by, 40 feet or something.
There's a huge network of roadway that's like off to the east here that is going to need more plan. This is like a little stub. And then the road, how it takes, as you drive in, you go to the left.
Right.
And it goes by a number of properties. I mean, that is definitely, yeah. Thank you, Erica. So that's the other portion of the network. It's a little bit more involved in this area, but it's definitely something for the future.
And just to follow up, I'm looking, I agree with the left turn, sure. Why is there a building in the way? Can you just go straight through to Tacoma? A straight shot?
No, it just dead ends at where it shows parcel 4 there. That's the end of that little strip of roadway that goes where the Verizon building is.
Right.
Yeah, so the scale there, like where you see Tacoma at the bottom of the plan, that's actually, I think, 800 or so feet away. Look, you see there's a little measurement right down there. So that's basically the backyards of numerous properties. It's just to give you, a gross, you see that little dimension right there with the.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. So there's another 800 feet of numerous properties in between there and Tacoma.
That makes sense. I got it now.
Yep.
But I'm fully on board with connecting as much as possible through there. And I know sometimes that isn't popular, but it's the right thing from a planning perspective for us to be doing. So I'm fully supportive.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? And this is a public hearing if anyone from the public wishes to speak. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Are there any commissioners' reports or comments? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. And back to you, Jason.
Thank you, Don. Okay, we'll call to order the October 27th Select Board meeting. And there's no changes to the agendas. We'll go over to announcements.
Okay, thank you. So the announcements are as follows. This meeting is being video and audio recorded. I think Sue, are you going to read the proclamation and then the board could vote on it? And say anything?
Yes, I'd be happy to read the proclamation. So for anyone who's not yet aware, it is Red Ribbon Week nationally, which is a week to conduct some awareness of substance misuse prevention. So I shall read the proclamation that I'm asking you to vote on. Whereas alcohol and other drug abuse in this nation has reached epidemic stages, and whereas it is imperative that visible, unified prevention education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs, and whereas the National Family Partnership and locally NAMI on Nantucket is sponsoring the National Red Ribbon Campaign, offering citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, no use of illegal drugs, no illegal use of legal drugs. And whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign will be celebrated in every community in America during Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd to 31st. And whereas business, government, parents, law enforcement, media, medical, religious institutions, schools, senior citizens, service organizations, and youth will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. And whereas the town of Nantucket further commits its resources to ensure the success of the Red Ribbon Campaign, now therefore be it resolved that the town of Nantucket does hereby proclaim October 23rd to 31st, 2021 as Red Ribbon Week, and encourages its citizens to participate in drug prevention education activities, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to a drug-free community.
Would you like to vote on it?
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, is any,
Sure, no problem. Thank you all.
is there a motion?
Motion.
Make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges, aye. That passes 4-0, Sue. Have a great week.
Thank you, Sue. We miss
Thank
getting
you
our
very much.
We miss getting our red ribbons, but maybe next year.
Oh,
Maybe we can dig them out from last year.
I was gonna say, we'll get them.
Yeah, I probably have a bunch somewhere. Okay, so the next announcement is that the vaccine clinic, COVID vaccine clinic continues at 131 Pleasant Street. The full schedule is on the town website. Right now it's Sundays from noon to 3. And again, please check the website. The annual town meeting for 2022, which will start on Monday, May 2nd. Citizen warrant article submittals are being accepted through 4 p.m. on November 15th. And if you are considering a citizen warrant article, please remember it takes the signatures of at least 10 registered voters. We have some opening information about the Take It or Leave It facility. It is planned right now to open on Wednesday, November 10th. I would like to turn it over to Graham Durovich, our recycling coordinator, to speak about what the expectations are for the opening. Graham?
Thank you, Libby, and thank you to the board for providing time for this. So I'm delighted to announce the plans for the Take It or Leave It's reopening slated for mid-November. As Libby mentioned, we're looking at the 10th, Wednesday, the 10th of November, and it will be open through the rest of that week. Please note that Veterans Day is that Thursday, and it will be closed on Veterans Day. What's new at Take It or Leave It? I'll run through how it will function and how we need everyone to engage with Take It or Leave It for this to work. All items for drop-off must be approved by Take It or Leave It attendants. This will take time and require patience until it is your turn. To speed this process, please pre-sort your Leave It items with like items and only bring accepted items in respectable working condition. The Take It area and the Leave It areas will be separate. As such, items that are dropped off will not be immediately available in the Take It area. What is accepted? All items must be fit for reuse. No broken or soiled items, building materials, mattresses, box springs, upholstered furnitures, carpets, tires, large appliances, air conditioners, dehumidifiers, food, liquids, personal care products, medications, or hazardous waste. There shouldn't be any surprises here. Most importantly, though, any item can be rejected or accepted at the attendant's discretion. among numerous other reasons. This is in part so that when we do the take it or leave it cleanouts, hopefully it won't have to happen weekly with the entire DPW staff on hand, not being able to get to other work items that need to happen around the island, and also minimize what was previously being thrown out, namely 4 tons on average a week. If you have any question about this or you disagree with an attendant, please contact DPW and refrain from arguing with take it or leave it staff. The take it or leave it's reopening and continued operation is dependent on adherence to the take it or leave it rules that I've already mentioned and general civility. Respect towards the staff and all patrons is required. It's pretty simple. It's all those things, you know, those basic rules we learned as young children. No grabbing things from other people, you know, no pushing, no shoving, no foul language, no rude and offensive conduct. If you change your mind about an item and you don't want it anymore, take it back where it belongs. We've worked hard to simplify the hours to align them more with the recycling center drop-off hours. Take it or leave it will be closed Monday and Tuesday, but otherwise following the recycling drop-off hours with the half-hour closure before the drop-off closes. We have 3 attendants. This is a big improvement from where we were before, 2 full-time and 1 part-time. And I ask that you also remember that we also have these online and social media outlets to correct directly with somebody who wants an item that you have to get rid of. We can continue doing that once take it or leave it reopens. And actually, it's probably a more sustainable way. You make sure your item finds a second home rather than dropping it off at take it or leave it and simply hoping that it finds a second home. And as a reminder, we have numerous proposed improvements going forward for the take it or leave it, including more staff hours. We have a great start, but we don't have any backup right now. So if someone's sick or otherwise out, it will cause the take it or leave it to close until we are back to minimum staff to reopen. We need proper facilities for our staff, starting with a restroom, additional indoor space for both leave it and take it areas, building for reuse and recycling programs, as well as safer parking for take it or leave it patrons that's separate from the recycling center drop-off parking. And to conclude, we're just very excited to see the take it or leave it reopen, and we have faith that collectively we can resurrect it as a place of sharing, community, and kindness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. That was very well put. I don't know if anybody has any questions about it.
It sounds like it's in our hands, right? It's in the public's hands if it's going to work out really well. And we have to do it a little differently. And if we do, I think it'll be more efficient and more helpful to everyone who needs those products in there. So I'm hoping that everybody does it right and behaves and makes it work. Like, this is the new version, take it or leave it. Right? Everybody wants it to come back, so this is how it has to come back.
Thank you very much. I had 2 other announcements that came in after the agenda was out. First off, I wanted to really thank the Public Works and Sewer Departments for coordinating so quickly and effectively very early this morning to clean up a large downed tree on Center Street at India that blew down in last night's storm. They did a great job working on that. There's still a little bit more to get at in the coming days. And I want to commend our Information Technology Department and Chief Technology Officer Karen McGonigal for their role in the town receiving a Cyber Aware Community Award for our efforts with the state's Executive Office of Technology Services and Securities Cybersecurity Awareness Training Program. That's a big mouthful, but we've been having an ongoing cyber security awareness training program for all town employees. Hopefully, in fact, I think it's for anybody with a town email address. So hopefully you all have been doing the training as well. Nantucket was one of 34 communities out of 351 that was given this designation. There was a virtual ceremony held yesterday that Karen and I attended. And we also really want to thank the employee participation in the training program. It really is critical to maintaining the town's IT systems integrity. So thank you all. That's it for my announcements.
Jason, do you want me to make that announcement about
Yes,
NCTV?
yes, please.
Okay, just so everybody knows, the weather has interrupted NCTV's ability to communicate with the server. So they are still able to stream this meeting on YouTube, but unfortunately they cannot air it on the NCTV 18 TV channel. So it's just a weather related issue. Thank you.
Jason, did you want to mention that other announcement about the person's last meeting? Or are we gonna do that later?
Oh, I'm totally spacing, Libby. I'm sorry.
It was the,
We just talked about this today.
the newspaper individual?
Oh, yes. This is Brian Bouchard's last week for the Inky, and all select board members and town officials been working with Brian for years on all of his, journalistic endeavors. And I actually talked to him today. So I just want to say, Brian, we'll miss you, and great work and good luck to everything you're doing in the future. And I also wanted to give a shout out to our finance director, Mr. Brian Turbot, who had a kind of a big birthday this last week. So I want to say happy birthday to Brian.
Happy birthday, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. I had that written down and forgot. Okay, moving on to any select board announcements or comments? Nope. Okay, there's no follow-up comments from prior select board meetings. We can move over to public comment. If there's any comment that's not on the current agenda, please raise your digital hand. We'll give that a second. Okay, no hands are raised. There's no new business that I know of. Can we get approval of minutes and the treasury warrants?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges, aye. That passes unanimously. Pending contracts. Any questions? Or is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges, aye. Okay, we're going over to Citizen Department requests and reports. We have resignation of the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust.
Motion to accept and advertise the position according.
Yep. And second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call: Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges, aye. Thank you. Okay, the next up is Robert B. Auer, request for waiver of the town noise bylaw from 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday nights from November 15th to, sorry, let me pull out my screen here, to May 15th of 2022 for installation of water infrastructure on Matacasham Valley Road as part of the airport water line project. Is there anybody want to walk us through that, or should we just?
We have Rob Lucchini here.
Oh, okay,
Permission to speak, Madam Chair.
sure.
So my name is Robert Lucchini. I'm with McFarland Johnson. We represent Nantucket Memorial Airport. Abigail Rose, representing Robert B. Auer, could not be in attendance tonight. She has lost power and has no access to internet or telephone. So on behalf, I won't be able to represent Robert B. Auer, but I will summarize the request. The Robert B. Auer Company respectfully requests a waiver for the town of Nantucket's noise ordinance in order to conduct night work to construct a portion of Matacasham Valley Road water line project for the Nantucket Memorial Airport. As a part of the project under the new water line and services will be installed within the road on Matacasham Valley Road and a portion of the airport property that requires night work. We are requesting the noise ordinance waiver that would allow for the construction of this critical public infrastructure between the evening hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. from November 15th, 2021 to May 15th, 2022. We are requesting to work Sunday nights through Thursday night. Based on discussions with the project team, Lieutenant McVicker, full road closures will be in effect. And we will work with safety officials on a plan shall an emergency situation present itself. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
No.
I have one. Why does it have to be done at night? I actually talked to Lieutenant McVicker today, and he said that it didn't, from what he understood, it didn't need to be done at night, it could be done in the day.
Jason, the reason that the project team has elected to do this as night work is we cannot guarantee that there are not individuals on Matacasham Valley Road that would not need access during the day. The night operations were to allow between the hours of 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. rather to 10 p.m. an open road to get to those houses, and to have the closure be at night while people would need to get to access to their house. We are aware of at least one individual that certainly lives there year round, and many of these folks will attend those houses periodically.
Okay, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. Doesn't really matters, but I'm not sold on why it has to be done at night. There's nobody really out there, and they can use Russell's Way. So I'm just, any other thoughts on board members? I might be outvoted on this.
I'm
Yeah, Jason.
not concerned with
Yeah,
that.
it's Matt. Yeah, I also, the other thing is, it doesn't have to be for that period of time. We just, curtailed another operation that wanted to, the board voted to curtail some night work because of issues around the airport with residents. And, what is the minimum that can happen to do this work? Do we know that?
Yes, 1 second. "44 days from March 21st, 2022 to May 19th, 2022.
All right, so we're asking for it sort of for all winter, but realistically, it isn't going to start until March.
Specifically for Matacasham Valley Road, it would only be in March. There's work being done on the airport property, but I believe your question is in reference to Matacasham Valley Road.
Yeah, Matacasham, yeah.
Matacasham Valley Road. Yeah, I mean, there are obvious variable issues that could arise with construction, but from the submitted official agenda, they're anticipating 44 days.
Erica?
So I just wanted to clarify too, that this is just a window for them to work. Just because if the schedule gets changed in some way and they decide to do Matacasham Valley first versus last or middle, they just want to have that flexibility, but they really do only have a finite period that it's scheduled for, but the time frame gives them more flexibility depending on weather and product availability and things like that.
Okay. Last question, is this connected to the water line being put in, connected to PFAS? I guess it's a water quality issue, right? So it has to be done.
That is correct.
It's for community benefit. It's not just a private entity, right? This is connected to a bigger issue.
And I'll note too, that this project also goes down Skyline Drive and Monahanset Road, but those projects, those portions of the project will be during daytime hours because they do have the availability of access from other roadways.
Okay. That's helpful. Any other comments, questions, Matt?
Yeah, I'll move approval.
Okay.
And part of it is there isn't a lot of, there are not a lot of residents there, and the ones that are there need this done.
Yep. Okay. Is there a second?
second,
All those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
aye,
Don Holgate,
Aye.
Jason Bridges, aye. That passes 4-0. Thank you, Bob, for coming on. Thank you, Erica, for that information.
Thank you.
Okay, town managers report.
Okay, so in your packet is an outline of potential warrant articles for the 2022 annual town meeting. This is right around the time that we typically start having a discussion about potential warrant articles. So just going through what's in your packet, the first batch there, 1 through 22, and those numbers may change a bit, are annual articles. So I'm not going to go through every one of those. Secondly, there is a list, the second batch is a list of potential zoning articles, which if Andrew's on, I was hoping he could take you through. And I think, Andrew, if I'm correct, these are still being worked on, but they're more conceptual at this point.
Oh, Libby, I just want to say we weren't going to take any public comment on this because it's just an update and we're not making any policy decisions. I just wanted to say it to the public. It's just for board discussion and update.
Or do you want me to go through these, or do you want to do yours first, Libby, whatever?
I think if you don't mind going through yours.
Okay, sure. So this draft was sent back September 30th. Planning board has had an initial discussion, and again, this was sort of our first pass at the work plan coming up for this town meeting. It is subject to change. We still have not seen all the citizen articles that might be submitted, and that may change how many of these we put forward, et cetera. But anyway, so I think the first group, all of you, I think, have been here for these in the past. The RC2 is a zoning district that's being phased out as part of the 2009 master plan. There's less than 90 acres of this remaining, where there was once over 1,400. And basically, these remaining parcels either get put to an appropriate commercial district or a residential district. And as you've heard me say many times, the existing RC2 district is really like a non-district. It allows a jumble of commercial and residential uses without a lot of thought. One thing just to let you know, if you need to take a preliminary look, if you go to the town's website on the GIS map, and you can, under the themes, you can pull up and look at the zoning, and the RC2 are basically the bright yellow areas that are left, and you'll find that there are few areas of those remaining. The next group is RC. So this is an area of less than 30 acres that is left. And again, the same principle applies here, where these remaining parcels go to a more tailored commercial or residential zone. Included in here is the Harbor Place property. That may be just a placeholder and not going forward this year, depending on, final activities of the board and future discussions, but we did include it in the list as part of this overall group. One phase out is again part of the master plan. It's a 5,000 square foot residential zoning district, frequently found on the edge of the old historic district. Much of R1 along this edge will likely go to the ROH district, and some of the rest of it goes either to R5 or R10, which are 10,000 equivalent residential districts, depending on the size of the lots. There's an area plan started, which covers the town area, which is the residential portions around the downtown. It doesn't include the actual downtown, but includes the residential area. So we'll see how much work they get done on this particular area. Where you find R1 is Grant Point, Cliff Road, out by the windmill along North Liberty. It's quite a large district. So anyway, there will be more of those in the future. Technical amendments to the zoning map. There are instances where some lots are split. So they're either they're in two or more different zoning districts. We're trying to clean those up. Some of that has occurred in Richmond, where there's been some additional land area attached to the original lots for parking, especially where some of the duplexes are. So we want that cleaned up. And then there's some other areas at various locations. Bylaw amendments, and these are typically, the technical amendments are grouped in a single article. There's some language about second driveways to include for garage apartments and tertiary that needs clarification. The definition of tent to allow an extension by special permit is an article that's under discussion. And specifically the food truck, which is currently created as takeout, there's been a suggestion that maybe that use needs to be better defined. Other concepts are a special permit allowance for regularity factor. That's a highly technical matter. If anybody wants to discuss that further, we'll have to set up an appointment. If we move forward, we'll have more material to explain what that is. Short-term rentals is something that the board has thought about and is getting more information on. We finally entered quite a lot of data from our finance department, and I thank them for that information to try to map all these particular where the short-term rentals are located, and to get more data on them on what particular zoning districts they're located in. We've also met with some of our colleagues in the region on Cape Cod and the Vineyard to hear what they are or aren't doing about short-term rentals. In addition, I've gotten certain advice from town council about how we might proceed with including them in the zoning bylaw. The recommendation is that if we do include the zoning provision, there probably needs to be a companion regulation type provision, which would involve general bylaws. And that's an item that I've brought up with the town manager, and I know that's on her and my list to have a discussion about. Cannabis articles at last year's town meeting, the cannabis committee was working on developing articles. I don't know if those are ready to go or not, but it's something we've had a discussion about. We've been having some discussions with housing groups about potential changes to the bylaw, and some of our own members have developed ideas. This additional covenant unit allowed on a lot is something that Matt Lowell from our board is very interested in. We've talked about also, I've met with the Housing Trust to talk about extending the potential workforce ownership allowance to maybe the R10 district, maybe the R20 district, and also to provide an incentive to accessory dwelling units under certain circumstances, which again are allowed in existing dwellings. Open space bylaw, it's actually not a bylaw, but over the years we've placed open space parcels in the lowest zoning districts, depending on their location in the country or the town. So, and this is basically to ensure that those aren't really being considered for development. These open space land, again, goes into the lowest density districts. And real estate and Ken, if you're still there, Ken and I have talked about different articles. The Red Barn Road and Sheep Pond area is an area that's been affected by erosion, and we have looked at paper roads, and so obtaining authority to purchase and discontinue and turn many of those roadways back to conservation areas with probably with partners. The Surfside Yard Sale in the vicinity of Curve Street is a single orphan parcel that we need to clean up. Nevers Road Network, again, is part of paper road networks that provide trails and other access points, possibly to the shore. Eel Point Road, same thing, 1930s era roads that were not properly taken. Hawthorne and Sconset, same idea of a paper road leading to the water. And Westchester Street is something I've had a very preliminary discussion with the land bank about, to make sure that there's access on one of the oldest roads in the town. There may be a home rule petition for property at Ames and New Hampshire Avenue. And this involves land that was supposed to be conservation land that's actually part of the road. So there's a problem with the current situation out there. That again, we can talk about as we move forward, whether it's actually needed. So that's the list right now. Again, we want to be careful not to put too many articles forward to overwhelm people, and wanted to get these ideas out. If the board has their own ideas, certainly in conceptual form, and wants to, add them to the list or throw them in the pot, now I guess is the time to do it. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Stick around in case some other stuff comes up. So the next category is general bylaws. And again, these are essentially things that have come up since the last town meeting and or have been discussed by the board. The first is paid parking. And I have a question mark there because there was an article at the 2020 annual town meeting, Article 66, it's attached, that is a non-binding question. It does seek to request that the select board, seek prior approval of town meeting before implementing paid parking. So I don't know if the board wants to proceed with that, or if it wants to go ahead and start proceeding to plan parking program. However, we do not have the staff resources or funding in this current fiscal year, fiscal 22. So if we are going to be charged with that program, we will need to start planning for it in fiscal 23. So again, you don't have to decide this tonight, but I'm just saying that if you want to move forward, we need to start planning for it.
Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, just, I think, we should have, this should be a point of discussion at some point. I think, I feel as though the board made a vote and we gave direction. And, I feel like this article was an attempt to, sort of undermine and subvert what we were trying to do. And I understand it's not popular with some segments of the island, but it's something that is crucial and for a lot of different reasons. And so, I would like to see us, move forward as quickly as possible. If it's not this year, it's next year.
Just to clarify a little bit, if you look back as to what happened, the board was moving in the direction of paid parking for sure, right before COVID. And you had actually scheduled a public hearing to determine to actually vote. And we never actually, you never actually voted. You actually voted not to proceed at that time, to put it on hold because of COVID. So if you do want to proceed, we just need to get something in the fiscal 23 budget. And there is, this isn't the last time you're going to talk about it.
Don?
With all of the other things that we have going on that we're trying to undertakings right now, I could put this one on hold. I mean, I feel like we're still struggling to come out of COVID. We're still figuring out if we're going to keep any streets shut down. I'd like to put resources into other areas right now. That's my take.
Christy? Sorry, Matt, go to you next.
Thank you. I think this would be a multi-year process. Town meeting would just be the first step. It wouldn't be able to go into effect for next summer. So I think at least having it at a town meeting sooner rather than later would help just kind of put the stepping stones together so that whether it's in 23 or 24 or 25, we have the process laid out and the staffing resources, but at least getting this first step out of the way might help in case we do want to implement it in 2 summers or 3 summers.
Matt?
I'm not sure that there is a need to go to town meeting at this point. I believe that we put it on hold. We didn't put it on hold permanently. We put it on hold because of, we put it on hold because of COVID. We put it on hold because of staffing issues. I think what we'd be asking for now is to put the funding in place for not this go round, but the next. I would like to see a parking commission created. I'd like to see that money go to NRTA and other, positive uses for downtown and transportation. I tie it to, some of the, we've had some customers, some business people complaining about the lack of business this summer and parking being the biggest thing. And then the other side, they say, yeah, because, employees are parking downtown all day. So those, it's sort of, you can't have it both ways. You can't have your staff, various staff from the various places park downtown all day and expect that you're going to have turnover in business. And so I know that this is, an unpopular, potentially unpopular, but everything I've read says that after you implement it and you earmark the money the right direction, that it becomes very popular. The businesses are busier, that there's more access downtown. When you go downtown, there's a place for you to park. So I think it's something that we, should still be striving to achieve. And I don't think, it's a multi-year process. And I don't think we should be holding, I don't think we want to just put it on hold for 2 more years, come back in 2 years and be told, well, we have to wait 2 more years. The other thing is I tie this to coastal resiliency. We potentially are losing, miles and miles of roads. So we've got, if we want to be proactive, we have to start thinking, how are we going to transport people, more people on less roads? And one of the ways you do that is to start to put in place, putting in place ways to move people around the island efficiently. And so I think that this is a step in that direction.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks everybody weighing in. So technically we don't have to go to town meeting. We could go to town meeting for this year, this May, for potentially be able to implement something in the summer of 2023. Right, that's one option. Because if we wait till the 2023 to go to town meeting, where there's not going to be enough time to hire and do whatever we need to do. So it'd be 2024. So assuming that we do want to go through town meeting. There's an opportunity cost to this. This is going to take a lot of time. It's very controversial. Deciding what our priorities are. I'm reluctant to take away from this will take a lot of time, and it is important. I'd hate to put a lot of time into it and let's not have the resources to do it in the next 12 months. Matt?
Again, Jason, I'm not sure how much time it's going to take to say this is what it will need and let's put it through on next year's town meeting. identify what's needed and not do it this year. Make sure it's in the budget for next year.
Mhm.
I don't think that's going to take a lot of time, and so, and I'm not saying we do it now. I also think that's why you need a commission. You need a parking commission with people dedicated to this so that they're looking at the numbers and they're making the changes, to make sure that it's operating well. And we can't do that, and the staff can't do it, and we can't do it in half hour, an hour, once a month on a Wednesday night. So I think, so there's some issues I think that we need to. So anyway, I don't think that's a reason not to put in the budget for a year after this. To not to have it on the horizon. Otherwise, otherwise it'll be 10 more years.
Right. Maddie, so are we wanting it in FY23 budget that is passed this May, that goes into effect July 1st, so that next spring of that following year, we have resources to do whatever we need to do, whether it's people or systems?
In 23 or in 24, or take it out of free cash if you have any in 23. I mean, just find a way to fund this. I mean, and not put in anyway.
Okay. So is everybody, I'm hearing a little bit of everything. Do we want to put something on this town meeting for paid parking? And if so, what would that be? I'm looking at all my boxes here. Libby, is it a funding resource, or is it more of a asking for permission from the town voters? Like, what would
It's a policy issue of the board to, as Matt said, it's not required.
Right.
There was the citizen article. So you're either going to put forward an article or you're not. And if you're not, then are you asking that we include funding in the fiscal 23 budget to secure the resources necessary to implement paid parking in a future year?
I think for me, the second part, putting some, what do we need to put in FY23 to make it work for that following year, whether we need to go to town meeting or not. It's going to be a tough one. I just remember how much time we put on Wednesday nights and preparing for it and outreach, because everybody has a different view. I agree with you, Matt. I know it can work. And I know once it got implemented, we would tweak it and people would get used to it, and it wouldn't just be for the wealthy and the elite to park downtown. Like we would make it work.
Right. Yeah. So some of the discussions that we've had with Jason, Jason from
Schreiber.
Yeah, with Jason Schreiber, we have such a demand, but if that demand, we may not have to charge people. People might be able to vote for park for 2 or 3 hours and not have a charge, and then the clock starts. Or as long it's, you won't know that till you get it going. I think we've already expended some funds toward this, the license plate readers, but so now we have the data, but we don't have anyone reading it. We don't. So we're gathering this, and we've made the first steps. I would hate to see us, not continue down the path. And take that data and turn that into, an equitable, smart program.
Yeah, I think we would need a transportation planner, and we would need somebody to own this, especially in the first 2 years, whether it's a transportation planner assistant or someone that's just a parking supervisor. I can't remember what we had looked into, but someone's going to have to own this, 40 hours a week. In the beginning, it's just going to be that complicated. We can't put it all on Chief Pittman and in the police. So until that is hired, I don't think we can go forward, whether we go through town meeting or not. Libby, do we have the resources for that? What was a parking supervisor? Is it in the budget? What never got passed?
Well, as we presented our budget for fiscal 22, it was not in there.
Not in there. Okay.
So, however, we have had some discussion about how to manage it going forward. We definitely need a transportation planner like position, which we are, as you know, working on. And we've done, a little more research with other towns. Typically, a function like this is it's not necessarily in the police department. The enforcement is in the police department. The design and administration of the system is typically, it could be with police in a separate division. It could be with planning. It could, some towns, I am not suggesting this, have it in their public works department. Some have it in a licensing division. It's all over the board. There's no one standard. But there are, there's other things, there is a capital investment with the kiosks that are necessary, and the placement of them, and the design of, the fee structure. And that's not really that complicated. But it does take somebody to, come up with it and get it going.
Yeah, we have to have somebody to own it. So I think I would want to see that put into the budget. I know there's a lot of EIRs this year. There's a lot of requests for new staff from different departments, but this is one that I would want to see in there before we went forward with anything policy wise. Someone has to own it and run it in the first couple of years. So until we have that person, I don't see anything happening. So where does that leave us, Libby? Nothing.
Well, that's clear as mud, but I think right now we are kind of keeping a list of budgetary items that are coming up in this manner. So we'll keep it in for now, and eventually, this isn't, again, the final time for this, and we'll see where it sort of pans out.
Okay.
As we get closer to the budget.
Thanks.
Okay, if we're continuing on here, the next item is Chapter 46-4 of the Town Code indicates that, I don't know if you can scroll down to it, Erica, I think I included in here, indicates that the offices, as you can see, they're highlighted in yellow, offices presently within the downtown core shall not be relocated without a vote of town meeting. In August, we had a facilities master plan workshop, and the board's general consensus was to centralize offices in a consolidated location at the 2 Fairgrounds Road site, which obviously means they are moving out of town. And at that time, there was some discussion about either seeking approval for that or seeking to rescind this. I'm not sure what you want to do, and obviously we have a number of offices that have moved out of the core district without a town meeting vote. So, but it was specifically talked about at the workshop. So anyway, you want.
Question, Jason, is this binding, Libby, or was this a binding vote?
I think that in discussions with town council, it's rather vague as to whether it's binding. The town hasn't, who's going to file a complaint and with who if the town doesn't seek town meeting approval. It's really rather unenforceable.
John?
Good evening, everyone. My reaction to this one is that if you were to consolidate town offices outside of the downtown core district, you would be talking about an appropriation of money, which would have to, by definition, go to town meeting, probably a borrowing. And so if there was a vote to appropriate money to consolidated 2 fairgrounds, this provision of the bylaws, in my opinion, would be satisfied by that vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That would be, we would know if the voters wanted it or not, right?
Yeah, and when you borrow money, you have to do it for a specific site. So you would have to identify the site, presumably 2 fairgrounds, in your motion to appropriate the money, and that would have the legal effect of approving moving of offices out of the core district. And I would also say that this talks specifically about purchasing and leasing of vacant or improved land outside the downtown core district. I suppose if you were building on land that was already owned by the town, this bylaw wouldn't apply in any event. I guess you could argue that the intent here in the second sentence is that any relocation requires town meeting vote, but I go back to my original statement. It's you accomplish that through the appropriation vote.
Yeah, it might be just I don't want to say a nice thing to do, but just could be something that we need to do to get people to understand why we're doing it. And it's not all town offices. And it's a consolidation. So what does the board think? Not that we have to make a decision tonight. Are we for putting something like this in?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. It actually sounds to me now that John, thank you for explaining it, that you don't really need to maybe do anything, because if we are going to consolidate the town offices out of town, that is going to require an appropriation vote, and there will be something on the warrant at town meeting for that in fiscal 2022.
Okay. I'm seeing something up.
I think disregard.
Matt?
Yeah, the appropriation is putting people on notice. We'll explain it at that point. The world is very different from 1997 till now. And I think, sea level rise and some of the other issues, chief among them. So I think some of the things that, so anyway, that's.
Thank you.
Okay, next is something very, very minor, which is just adding some words to the title of Article 2 of Chapter 127, so that instead of reading obstructions on sidewalks, it reads obstructions on sidewalks, streets, bicycle paths, or ways. That wording is already in the actual bylaw. However, it's confusing when people are looking up the bylaw, so it's just more of a clarity issue. Shouldn't be controversial at all. Next is an amendment to Chapter 55, which relates to the leash law. I had a discussion with the land bank director about this a few weeks ago, and there was a question. John, I might need you to help me explain this. There was a question about whether or not an established dog park would be exempt from the leash law, and I think it was determined that it could, but it would require a change to the wording in the bylaw. Is that correct, John?
That's correct. Yes.
And, established dog parks, we work on some wording for that. Not like.
I also had a visit from Eleanor during town council hours, and she indicated that the land bank was going to be submitting a petitioned article for this.
So I may want to speak with them about that, because if the board is generally in favor of this, there's really no need for them to submit a petition article. I guess they could if they wanted to, but just kind of easier if it's town sponsored. In any event, town government study or government study cleanup items. At your September 29th meeting, you reviewed the town government study committee's report. And there were several recommendations that I think we were calling them cleanup items to the town code. And at the time, I think the board indicated that it would support a warrant article that contained them, and John is working on that warrant article. So I just wanted to mention that it works.
Libby, if I may, I thought I had sent that to you earlier this week. So
you probably did. I have a rather substantial email backup, so I probably have not actually read it.
Okay, I'll resend it to you, but I did complete that. It's a single warrant article, and it's a home rule petition to amend the charter, and it incorporates all of the recommendations that the Board of Selectmen voted to pursue on September 29th. So that should be good to go.
Great, thank you, John. Let's see. reconcile bylaw numbering references to membership of agricultural commission. There's something weird happened in the town code, and there's a couple of references to the membership of the commission, but they don't reference what they're supposed to reference with the numbering. So it's just a cleanup. And I have short-term rentals on here as well. The board had generally seemed to be wanting a discussion about this in advance of the 2022 annual town meeting. So I just did not know how you wanted to proceed, also in light of what the planning director talked about a little bit earlier. And again, you don't necessarily have to get all into it tonight. Okay. So next category is home rule petitions. We do have several that have not been acted upon yet by the legislature. So those most likely would, they go back in to be reauthorized. And I do need to check in with our legislators to confirm that we're doing that or not. Sometimes due to the timing of the legislative session, you don't necessarily need to. I just need to make sure of that. And as Andrew mentioned earlier, there may be home rule petition in connection with the Sheep Pond Road relocation. And I think, Andrew, you mentioned something else, so I'll have to add that in here. Potential mass general law acceptances. You all have talked previously a little bit about the so-called WIF, the Water Infrastructure Investment Fund. And we had said this probably needs some research. It does require a ballot vote. Do we want to pursue it? And we have not been able to really get deep into the research. I'm sure John could give a brief explanation of it, but it was kind of a concurrent conversation with going down a little bit with community impact fee on short-term rentals. And there is a report from John attached here. And if you want to, I think John could probably take you through it a bit so you could understand what the community impact fees do and what is required locally to accept them. Maybe just, I don't know, do you want a quick overview from town council?
Did you want me to quickly explain?
I think so, yes, John, please.
Okay, so first, the Water Investment Infrastructure Investment Fund. It functions very much like the Community Preservation Act. It's a two-step process for adoption. First, a town meeting vote, and then a ballot question at an annual town election. The town would set a real estate surcharge of up to 3% on real estate taxes. That money would go into this fund. It can then be appropriated for water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure projects going forward. The town of Sandwich has a 2% fund that they've approved, and the town of Dennis has a 1% that they've approved. So that's how that works. It obviously, one advantage is that the town gets to decide how that money is spent. And you're not, that's pretty much the difference between that and the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, which is still outstanding. It would require a vote of the select board to put that 2.75% in place as an additional element of the rooms tax. But really the WIF is I think an alternative to that. The short-term rental law also established two new community impact fees that the town could potentially vote to adopt. You would set the fee again up to 3%. It only applies to short-term rentals and not other forms of lodging, such as hotels and motels. You have to adopt them in a certain order. The first one is a surcharge on owner-occupied units. And if you adopt that, then you can adopt the second one, which is a surcharge on basically investment-owned units. multiple units that are operated in the town by the same operator. So those two options are available. It is again it's simply a town meeting vote. The surcharge is up to 3%. One element of these fees, however, is that you must spend at least 35% of the revenue collected for either affordable housing or infrastructure projects. And so the first 35% goes into a receipts reserved account, and the remainder would go essentially into the general fund for appropriation. And then lastly, the other option that you can consider is taking a portion of your rooms tax and dedicating at least 25% to a special purpose stabilization fund. That's a 2/3 vote of town meeting. And in the future, if you want to spend that money, let's just say you did one for affordable housing, it does require a 2/3 vote of town meeting to appropriate out of that stabilization fund. And you cannot change the allocation for a period of 3 years. So those are basically the various options you have for generating revenue in connection with the either the surcharge on the property taxes or how to allocate your rooms tax. I don't know if there are any questions.
None for me, John. Thank you. Any from the board? Nope.
I'll make Jason. It's Matt. I think we should be considering, when we first didn't do this, you didn't put the charges on. One was to learn more about the various wastewater and what the differences between the Cape Cod Fund and the other fund are. The other reason was to phase this in. And I think with our need for affordable housing particularly, we should be phasing it in. I think if we want to have the housing bank approved in Boston, we have to be taking advantage of the other tools that they're giving us to utilize. Otherwise, why should we do a housing bank if we're not doing, using the tools that they're giving us? So I think that we should be talking about it and considering phasing it in.
Proceed on. Okay. Thank you for that, Matt. There's a couple of other potential Mass General Law acceptances. One relates to a special stabilization fund with respect to the receipts of the marijuana dispensary fee revenue. And I do need to review that a little bit more with town council and the finance director. And there's a fairly new, I think it's maybe it's a modified general law about the tax work-off abatement program, which I think may have added veterans and some other parameters to, I think it's to sort of improve this program or expand it. And we need to evaluate that as well, but that's a potential. As far as real estate items go, the potential land acquisitions or transfers in connection with home rule petitions. There's a couple of utility easements as noted there, one for the airport at Bunker Road, one for the marine maintenance building at Shadbush. There's the long-term lease authorization for the shooting range, which you are familiar with, and the conservation restriction for property for the shooting range. There is a potential real estate purchase pending final select board approval for potentially $4.75 million. That would most likely require a debt exclusion and an associated ballot question. And that will be more laid out as we proceed on in your discussions of that property. There most likely will be ballot questions for debt exclusions and or capital exclusions for capital projects and potentially real estate. And there will be a ballot question for a charter change, which was approved at the 2021 annual town meeting with respect to the timing of mailing the town meeting warrant to voters, and that requires a ballot question. And just a reminder that the citizen article deadline is Monday, November 15th. So I would want to know at this point if there's anything on here that you really hate and want to take off or want to add. And certainly, again, this is a preliminary discussion, and you will be having another one on, I think the next discussion is November 17th, if not earlier.
Any comments on the board? Anything that you want off or be added?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the town management activities report, and as typical, I will not go through every single item here. Eric, if you can possibly put it up, thank you. What I've tried to do on these reports is to put in bold some of the more recent or current items or things that are taking some time. The coastal resiliency plan draft is out. Is it the draft that's out or the final is out? I saw something today. I didn't fully read it.
It's the final.
Final, thank you. You do have this on your December 1st agenda with the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee. So you'll be discussing that more in a few weeks. Strategic plan, as you know, you had your status implementation update with town admin on October 13th. And we are in the process of scheduling some follow-ups, some focused follow-ups with solid waste, IT, and the form of government study committee, which actually is on your agenda for November 3rd. Nantucket Water Quality Improvement Plan. I am reviewing a report from, and so is some other staff from Weston and Sampson, and we're hoping to schedule a review of that with you in November. Facilities Master Plan. At some point, I've got to get a handle on this a little bit more with our consultants. We are going to need some direction from the board regarding the location of what location we should be planning for the DPW facility. Baxter Road long-term planning has been active. You all had a discussion at your meeting last week about a position statement that's on your agenda again next week. And at some point we should discuss follow-up to the Arcadis report. Meanwhile, I am hopefully having a discussion this week with a consultant to help to give me a scope of work to start utilizing the $500,000 that we have appropriated already for the relocation of Baxter Road. So we're trying to get going on that. PFAS, we had a public information session last week about that. We have a number of meetings that have been ongoing. We had a department head retreat last Friday, and I briefed the chair and vice chair about it earlier today. We talked about three main topics. One had to do with how town administration could be more effective in light of our current challenges, what we need from the cabinet members, what they need from us, things like that. And we had a very good discussion about that. We also had a DEI presentation from our DEI director, and we did an exercise in connection with that. And we did some brainstorming as to recruitment and retention of employees. And I think we are, and as well as succession planning. And I think we're going to set up a couple of sort of like task forces to come up with some specific recommendations that we could start working on. Budget meetings with departments are ongoing. DPW, we are meeting with the DPW admin staff weekly, if not more frequently. I am on, I think along with you, Jason, the Behavioral Health Steering Committee, which is taking a good amount of time, but it's very needed. Island Home is going to start heating up with getting ready for an appropriation request at town meeting for design of the facility at the Sherburne Commons site. We've had some meetings with Waste Options. I had a little meeting with the Nantucket Community Association Chair and Vice Chair, who is taking over for the chair. David Brown is stepping down and Woody Kay is stepping up. The Park and Rec Commission has been pretty active lately. They've been reviewing the school athletic facility plans. We had a presentation from the school last week or the week before, as well as revisions that are most likely going to be needed to the Tom Nevers component of the Parks Master Plan. We had our consultant in to review that. And if we are proceeding with the DPW facility at the Novadear Delta, well, at the Delta site, there may need to be some playing field reconfigurations and additions at either of those locations, Novadear and Delta. And we're trying to determine with the school if there are any opportunities for community use of any of the school fields when the school is not using them or they are not in a resting mode. And we had a postseason beach meeting a couple weeks ago. Take it or leave it, we talked about tonight. Greg actually was able to attend in person the annual ICMA conference, which was in Portland, Oregon. And it was a pretty packed conference. I myself did a digital workshop with another manager. We talked about being town managers in small towns. And we've got a number of projects underway. The town pier, as you can see, is waiting on final permitting. We're hoping to bid that out this spring and start the work next fall. The third sewer force main, the contract is in the process of being prepared and that work will begin this winter. Wade Drive construction is underway. SBPF and Baxter Road, obviously those are ongoing issues with a substantial amount of staff time being devoted to them. We've awarded a contract to our DEI strategic plan consultants. We've met with them and established a leadership team headed by Kamal McCarthy, our DEI director. And the compilation of information that they need to proceed is underway. We do have a contract award pending for the classification and compensation study that we have funded in our current budget. We've got a committee handbook update underway. Erica is constantly updating our fall winter projects timeline and map. We are really working on trying to develop a sustainability function within town government, and you will see the results of that at in our budget presentation for fiscal 23. We're meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust later this week to discuss town employee housing design and feasibility and things like where and how much and what should it look like. And I think they have some ideas that they may be able to help us with. We've got some procurements underway for town employee rental housing, as well as playing field maintenance. We're still working on prioritizing all of our DPW projects and determining project managers for the multitude of projects that are out there that haven't started yet. Island Home, I already mentioned. Downtown sidewalk repairs are ongoing. There are a number of sidewalk repairs that have been done over the past month or so. Fall paving is coming up. We are working towards getting a scope to do some patching in the Orkawa Monahans area, as well as the Washington Street Francis intersection. And there are a number of things that are kind of on hold or getting back into a queue that are listed there. We do have a WPI group working on a Government 101 program. Greg and I have been meeting with them. I think they're really into it, and I think are going to have some good recommendations. And personnel, of course, as you know, are still in collective bargaining negotiations with all units. We are working very hard to fill the transportation planner position, which requires bargaining. So we're hoping to work out something there. Actually, the Deputy DPW Director for Facilities, I'm pleased to say that has been filled or is about to be filled momentarily with Paul Berard, who is currently our facilities manager, but he is getting promoted into this position. So we're very, very happy about that. DPW Director is still out there. We've actually filled the Assistant Treasurer position. We're working on the Island Home Administrator and the Park and Rec Director. And I think I was told this week by HR that we have a number of applications for the Park and Rec Director. So we're going to be starting interviews on that very shortly. That is the conclusion of the town manager report.
Any questions for any of that? Okay. On to select board comments, reports. Does anybody have anything? Christy?
Just a quick update. This past weekend, the Cape and Islands Commission on the Status of Women held a listening session here on island. They've been around for a couple of years, but hadn't actually made the trip to Nantucket. And a lot of the topics that were brought up are very similar to our strategic plan, but it dove a little bit deeper into healthcare, homelessness, domestic abuse, and kind of access to things and resources on island, especially mental health and childcare were the other big topics. And basically every topic that was brought up, it was, we don't have this resource here and it's because of housing. So everything went back to housing, which has kind of been the theme of a lot of our select board meetings. But it's just becoming more apparent during COVID and trying to get these resources on island as, you know, we're a growing community, that the need for housing is really the limiting factor in trying to produce a lot of these programs and having these resources on island. So the people that attended the meeting asked the commission to support the new legislation that the housing bill that's been going through the state and seeing if they would support that, because we think that would be the single most important factors. Supporting housing would kind of support all the rest of these initiatives that really contribute to quality of life. And on that thing, I just wanted to thank Tucker and Ken for representing us yesterday at the state on the housing bill. I saw the article in the Vineyard Times that the coalition has really grown and a lot of people are signing on to it. They have a lot of businesses and different organizations, and the Edgartown issued a letter of support for the legislation. So I just was hoping maybe in the next couple of weeks, we could talk to Tucker and Ken about what this board could do to help push this legislation along. Thanks.
Thanks, Christy. Don or Matt? Okay, I just had one thing. Our agenda meeting today, Christy and Libby and I talked about, you know, when are we going to go back into person for select board meetings? And we went back and forth, and for two reasons, we decided to start back in person January 12th. First reason is there's a chance that through the holidays with people gathering, there'll be another spike. And with our new, I guess, measurements that the Board of Health is using for the BioBot test for the, I believe it's 50% of the, actually, I don't know exactly what it is, but Christy, can you help me out? Somebody, 50% of the viral load connected to other communities. I think it's more detailed than that, but if that goes over 50%, then a mask mandate comes back. And then we don't want to, for audio reasons and trying to communicate, to be in person with the hybrid model with mask on. So I didn't want to go back into 4FG in person and then have to come back to remote and then go back again. And then the public doesn't know, should I go to 4FG? Should I check in? So we just thought we'd get through the holidays, start January 12th. So that's the first reason. And the second reason was we were hoping to get a good take on all the different facilities and the different commissions, boards, committees that can be using the hybrid model, because I think that is the future, where people can chime in from afar and they can be there in person. So we don't have a perfect kind of scope on that yet. Like, we know the select board could do it, but what other facilities can we do it in? So I've asked Libby, giving them time to come up with where all the places that we can do the hybrid model. I think another factor is NCTV 18 can only go so far, so that's a limiting factor. So we're going to go back in person January 12th unless something else happens in the meantime. It doesn't allow us to. But I know this is an agenda item, but if board members want to make a comment on that, be fine. Christy?
I just wanted to add that this would be for all boards and commissions to go back to in person on January 12th, not just select board.
If I can do that, I know I'm not good. I don't want to tell planning board what to do. But I think I think we need to give time to figure it out IT wise to make the hybrid model work for everyone and make sure who gets the priority of what time and what slot. Eric? I'm sorry, go ahead, Libby.
I would certainly defer to Eric on this, but this takes a massive amount of planning. We have limited meeting locations, limited capacity of NCTV. They can only tape one meeting at a time. And it really needs to apply to all boards, committees, and commissions. The meeting space is, sort of centralized with planning it and who's going to use it and when. And because of this meeting space issue, when we get to January, there is going to be a need for some boards, committees, and commissions to meet at a different time than perhaps they normally do. There's only one main meeting room that is available for taped meetings.
For the hybrid model, right? To do the remote and in person, right?
And with NCTV.
Right.
Erica, do you want to add to that?
Sorry. Yeah, we're gonna have to probably phase this out a little bit because we do have limited meeting space and because NCTV's capabilities are limited in terms of how many meetings they can record. So we're going to be starting with select board and then move out to regulatory meetings or regulatory boards, and then we'll start trying to accommodate the non-regulatory boards. Some of those might have to stay remote for a little while, but knowing that the April 1st, 2022 deadline is right around the corner, we really need to figure out what we're going to do. We do have the trailer, which we have for maybe another 400 days under our current permit. And that is a possibility. It doesn't have taping capabilities now, but we would probably, and it wouldn't have NCTV there. We would probably do, they're called OWL cameras. Currently we have one at 2 Fairgrounds Road that the HDC and its subcommittees are using with success for their Thursday afternoon meetings. And then there's training involved with that, and a lot of coordination is going to have to go into this. So I just, ask everyone to please be patient. We're doing the best we can, trying to accommodate everyone, but we do have kind of a hierarchy of how we're going to roll it out.
I think the hybrid model being in person and allowing people to remote in, like that, I think that's the future for select board meetings. But we need to perfect it. And I think the last time we did it, there was some technical issues, so it's still a work in progress. So I think January 12th is a good place to shoot for, to kind of work out what Erica said, Libby, to work all this out. But I think all select board members that I spoke to are ready to go back in person and are comfortable doing it. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Don Holgate,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Jason Bridges, aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Just a reminder before everybody signs off, please, I have paperwork that needs to be signed before the end of the week. If you can try to come by the office, that'd be great.
Thank you, Erica.
Thanks.
Thank you, Libby, for your town manager report. It's a lot of stuff. Good night.